Hello and welcome back to the Lobo Designs channel. My name is Heather Lynn. I'm the owner of Lobo Designs, and I'm here today with a different type of video. I'm going to be going over the LightBurn user interface from the perspective of someone who doesn't use LightBurn for designing. As you may know by now, I use Adobe Illustrator for designing. I never use LightBurn for designing. I do use their tools inside the LightBurn interface every now and then, but for the most part, I only use LightBurn to import my designs from Adobe Illustrator, which you can do in two ways when you're using LightBurn. You can copy and paste from Adobe Illustrator into LightBurn, or you can import. But today, I'm going to be going over just the bare minimum of how to use LightBurn if you're not interested in using it for designing and you're only looking to use it to control your laser. So let's get started. First things first, this is the LightBurn user interface. I personally am using an older version of LightBurn, so if yours looks a little bit different from mine, it's most likely because you're using a different version, but all in all, the functionality is the same in every version. The newer versions have some extra tools. Again, I don't use those because I only use LightBurn for controlling my laser, and that's about it. So let's get started with what this interface looks like. The first thing that you'll see is in the center here, this is your laser bed. This is where you'll be placing your designs for placement on your crumb tray, and you will be controlling the placement of the beam also from here and directly from your laser bed. I'll show you a little bit later how to control it on your laser bed and the difference between the red dot pointer on the Eon Mira 9s and other commercial lasers compared to the Glowforge user interface camera. That's actually a huge difference between the two that I really want to make sure I highlight today so that I can explain to some of you who don't have commercial lasers why we don't need cameras. In LightBurn, what you'll see is down here at the bottom, you'll see a bunch of colors. These are your settings. If you're a Glowforge user, you're used to these being stored inside of a menu. About the same, except these are driven by colors. So if you had a square on your artboard that was black, you're going to be controlled by the 00 color down here, which also is correlated up here in your cuts and layers panel. So you can double click here and you can change the speed, the power, the max and minimum power. And you can also control a bunch of other things in here like your line interval, your LPI. You can do a Z offset, which is an easy way to defocus without having to do that manually on your machine. I'll walk you through that as well. And you can also select down here on whether or not you want the engraved to fill all of your shapes at once, follow the groups, or fill your shapes individually. So you have a lot of control in these settings. And again, these are by color. So if you wanted to use blue instead, you could take this, you could change it over to blue, and then you would be following the blue settings, which for me are my tumbler settings. 300 speed, 35 power. I use a 400 LPI sometimes. Sometimes I go down to 300, just depends on the design. And for tumblers, I don't do an offset because I manually focus to 9mm. Getting out of our settings, getting away from this. At the very top of LightBurn, you'll see up here you have your menu bar, and then in here you have more tools, which we'll be going over a couple of them, not all of them. So first things first, up here in your LightBurn menu, if you go into Preferences, you can also hit Commands and the comma key if you want to open that up with a hotkey. The first thing that I want you to always check if you are an Adobe Illustrator user, or if you're not, is to go into the File Settings tab right here, and double check over here in your SVG import settings to make sure that you have 72 dpi selected if you're an Illustrator user, or you have 96 dpi selected if you're not an Illustrator user. It says Inkscape, but this is very specific to Illustrator for the 72. If you are an Illustrator designer and you import your designs into LightBurn at 96 dpi, they will resize. I will repeat that one more time. If you are an Illustrator designer and you export your SVGs, if you have buyers or if you yourself are using those files inside LightBurn and the DPI settings are not set correctly, your file will resize. So make sure that the first thing that you do when you go into LightBurn, if you're an Illustrator user, is to make sure that you have this set to 72 DPI. If you're not using Illustrator, you can keep it at 96. Once you have that set, I just click OK to get out of here. The next thing that I'll show you is what we'd use to control the settings on the machine, which is the machine settings. So you can go into Edit, you can go into Machine Settings. This is gonna fail because I don't have my machine on, but this is where your machine setting would be. I'm gonna click OK and get out of here. The other thing up in the menu that you'll see often that you'll wanna use is your tools in here, and you'll go into your rotary setup. Your rotary setup is where you're going to control all of the stuff with your rotary. Your steps per rotation, your roller diameter, your object diameter. The object circumference will automatically calculate based on the object diameter that you enter. Again, this is something that's not enabled right now because my machine isn't turned on, but this is where you control your rotary settings, and it's super easy. Getting out of there, I don't ever use anything else up here in this menu, but I do use a couple of tools that are in this gray menu at the top, and I will show you what they are. I'll walk through the ones that I use. I'm not walking through all of them because you don't need to know all of them. So up here, I will just show you, this is a new document. We'll go in the spotlight. This is a new document. This is an open document. There is a difference between open and import. There's an open document here. This will open LightBurn files. You use this to open LightBurn files. You can also use this to open SVGs, but I believe what happens is you can only keep one open at a time if you open SVGs. If you use import, you can import multiple at one time. So what I personally do is I use import. You can also use Command or Control-I on your keyboard to quickly get to that import function. And it's the same as it would be in any other software. You just pick the file that you're importing and then you click open. So then it would import into this part of your board and you'll be able to move it around to send it over to your laser. The other tools that are up at the top here that I use are this one right here, which is general LightBurn settings. That's where we just were. So if you want to get into the preferences, you can either go into LightBurn preferences or you can go into these two little cog wheels and that will open your preferences as well. Right next to the cog wheels is a wrench. That's your device settings. Also important. So we're going to open these up and I'm going to show you something that you want to pay attention to if you're interested in defocusing on your laser from LightBurn. You don't have to manually defocus, which means lowering your bed or making your beam go out of focus. We can do that in LightBurn by controlling the Z-axis and lowering your bed when you're engraving a job. So in order to control that, you want to make sure that you have your Z-axis controls turned on. So once more, you're going to go into this device settings up here, which is this little wrench. And on the right-hand side here under Z-axis control, you want to make sure that enable Z-axis, relative Z moves only, and optimize Z moves are selected and make sure that they're green. These in here are specific to my machine. These are reverse interval settings. I was having an issue a few years back with my reverse intervals, and these are in here. These are very specific to my machine. So if you don't have anything in here, that is fine. Don't panic. The only thing that I wanted to make sure that you do know of in this box is that these are turned on. Otherwise, you will not be able to control your Z-axis from your settings. I'm going to click OK and get out of here. I'm going to create another square on this artboard, just so you can see what these tools up at the top are. So I drew that square and now I'm hitting the escape key twice so that it's no longer selected. Up here, you can see if you have your object selected like this, these will be not grayed out so that you can actually go through and edit the width, the height, the inches, and whatnot. If you don't have anything selected, you will not be able to access those. So I'm going to select this once more and just show you the X position and the Y position is the placement on the bed. So you can move it around on the bed by using these arrows, or you can just click and drag it. You can also hold down the space bar if you'd like on your artboard to move it around. So I'm holding down the space bar so that I can grab it and shift it around. You can scroll in with your mouse to make it zoom out. You can scroll back with your mouse to make it zoom in. And then when you have an object selected, as I said before, you can control the positioning up here. You can control whether or not it resizes to scale. So you're going to maintain your width and height proportions if you have this set to lock. Over here, we're at the zoom capacity. I don't look at this at all. That's entirely up to you if you want to adjust that. I never touch this. I never touch the positioning for here. The only time I edit positioning is over here when I'm sending it over to the laser, and I will show you that in a minute when I turn my machine on. And then up here, you can also rotate your design. So if I wanted to, let's say we had this box shaped like this, and I wanted to rotate it 90 degrees, that will flip it. And now it's on a different axis, and then you can rotate it again if you'd like to. Another quick way to rotate objects is to hover over the corner and you can just click and spin, or if you hold down the shift key, it will rotate at, I believe it's 15-degree angles every time you do like a little bit of a spin. So if you can see how it's kind of snapping to the angle, and if I let go of shift, I can kind of do whatever I want with this. Command Z will always undo, same as your other programs. And then the other thing up here at the top that I wanted to show you, if you're working in inches and you want to quickly switch to millimeters, you can click on inches and it will switch everything to millimeters. You can also click on millimeters and it will switch back to inches. So that is a quick rundown of everything over on this side that you would possibly need. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my laser and I will show you how to work everything on the right side of the screen. I'll be right back. Okay, now you are looking at Eonce. This is my Eon USA Mira 9, and I'm going to quickly show you how the red dot beam works, which is this guy right down here. You can see the red dot that's coming under. That is called a red dot pointer, and that is what shows us where our laser beam is going to start and where it's going to cut. So the very first thing that I want to show you is how to use the autofocus. And what you do for that is you just move the red dot over the material. You make sure that not only just the red dot is over the material, but you want your focus pin right here to be over the material as well. What will happen here is when this judges the height of the material, it's going to lower the gantry. This little pin is going to get pressed up against the material like this, and it's going to tell the machine that this is where the material is. You want to make sure that this is always over the material and not over your crumb tray, because if this goes into the crumb tray, you will have a collision and then you will panic. So right now we're going to autofocus right onto this area by going into the menu. You hit ZU on your menu, you go all the way down to autofocus and you just hit enter. It's going to raise the bed all the way up until the focus pin touches the material. It'll drop it back down, and then it's at a 6.4 millimeter focus point right now. What I do is sometimes for engraves, I will manually lower the bed in LightBurn by 2 millimeters so that the beam is out of focus, and I use that for engraves. But I like doing that in LightBurn because then it will automatically bring the bed back up to the focal point for laser cutting. So now that we have the precise calibration So now that we have the calipered measurement on here and we're in focus, we can move this red dot to where we want the job to start on the laser. So I'm going to start this up in the corner. Over here on the right, if you'll notice, I have magnets in each corner here. These are, I believe, neodymium magnets. I don't know how to say the word correctly, but I use these. I just keep them either on my bed when I want to raise material, or I use them to pin down material that's a little bit warped. This sheet was a little bit warped from sitting on its side, so I am using magnets up in the corner and here, there. There's one on the side as well, just to make sure that my material stays flat when I'm cutting. So now that we have our origin point here, some users would set their origin point here on the controller. I don't do that. I go right back into LightBurn and I start from where I'm positioned at. So I'm going to hop back over into LightBurn and show you how I would send a quick job over to the laser. Now, I am in Adobe Illustrator for 1 minute because I'm going to create a quick design that we can use as a test. So I'm just going to create, let's just do a name. We'll use my name since, hey, it's me, right? So we're going to, I'll use notes. I'm going to type my name, and then let's just do 2 inches. 2 inches wide. I'm going to outline it. We're going to give it an offset path. Offset path, not that large. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go over into LightBurn and I'm going to paste it. So it was just Command C, Command C, Command V, or Control C, Control V. Sorry about the buzzing noise. The chiller on my machine just clicked in. So I am going to be cutting this on the laser. As you can see up here, we have our line, which is the cut line around the word, and then we have our fill, which is the engrave. On a Glowforge, you would be used to seeing engrave and cut. We see line and fill, both the same, just worded differently. For this fill are 445. I'm going to reduce that because my normal settings are 335. And I am going to do a Z offset for this. We're in inches, so it's negative 0.0787, or it's negative 2 millimeters if you're in millimeters. So I have my LPI set, I have my setting set. On my cut settings, I'm going to use 3060 because I'm using whiteboard. And I'm going to keep the Z offset the same for here, and we're going to click OK. And it will follow the order up here. So if for some reason you wanted to cut first, you can bump this up to the top and then it will cut first, engrave second. I always cut last, so I wanted the red line to be at the bottom here. And I'm going to be framing, if you remember the sheet, we're framing from the top right of the sheet. So this right here, imagine that these 9 boxes are the sheet of material or the object that you're engraving. You are telling it where you want this to start engraving from and where you want it to be placed. So because you are starting at the top right of the sheet, you want to make sure that your job origin is also set to top right so that it knows to start cutting. I'm going to zoom in here. This little green dot, it knows to start here and then cut over, down, over, and up, okay? If we were job origining down at the bottom left, you would see this green. You would be cutting, starting from this direction, and it would go right, up, over, and then down. You can also frame from center, which is what I use for tumblers, and then you would be placing your red dot pointer directly in the center of your object so that you know that your design center and your object center are going to be exactly the same. And that is the reason why you don't need a camera with a commercial laser versus with a Glowforge, because the Glowforge doesn't have the red dot. The red dot is key for placement on objects. So like I said, we are doing it from top right on our board. We're going to start from current position, like I said, because that's where I have my red dot placed. And the only thing that I do from here is I click start. There are others who send it to their machine and then they run the file directly from their machine. This helps if you have your machine in another room or in a different location where you actually have to go to the laser to start the job. You don't want to run your laser from another room. Because my machine is directly next to me, I can start directly from LightBurn, and then I don't have to worry about sending it over to the laser and then going to the controller to cut the job. So I am going to have this entire thing here. I'm going to hit frame, which is going to show me on the right hand side exactly where my job is going to cut and engrave, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we're going to click frame here. Frame has 2 options. It has a square option, which is going to show you exactly the square of this entire design, but it also has a circle frame option, which is neat if you're using a circular design, and I'm going to show you real quickly how that works with a circular design. So let me get the circle tool out, draw a circle on here. We're going to do from top right again, and now I'm going to do the circle frame versus the square frame just to show you exactly the difference between the two. So first I'll do the square frame, and now I'll do the circle frame. If you can see, when it does the circle frame, it goes around every single part of the design to let you know exactly where that design is going to cut. This is very helpful when you're using scrap materials and you want to be able to cut in a certain space. Using the circle frame option will show you a better layout of where your entire design is going to cut on your scrap sheet versus the square frame. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send this over to my laser so that you can see how this works, and I will record the job while it runs. You are never supposed to run a job with your lid open. I have my sensor tripped just so that we can record this for the overview. I do have my laser eyewear on to make sure that it doesn't damage my eyes since my lid is open. But again, please don't laser with your lid open unless you absolutely need to, and always remember to protect your eyes. Ready and start. Now that the job is complete, I'm going to take these magnets off. I'm going to pull this back a little bit, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. So this right now is what we just cut. It looks ashy, it's a mess, it has 3M on the back, but it has masking on the front. So what I do for this is, the first thing that I do is I turn on my blower, and I brush this dust into the blower. Now, while I still have the masking attached on this, show you what I do. Using a piece of Gorilla Tape, I will just push this down, face down, on a piece of Gorilla Tape, and pull back. there you go. So we have the little header that was cut out, and I'm gonna hop back over to my computer so I can show you the rest of this overview. And now we're back in LightBurn. So the design has been cut, it has been engraved, and if you want to save this as it is, you can save the full LightBurn file. So you can go up into File, and you can go to Save As, and you can actually save it as a LightBurn file. So let's just save this to my downloads. We'll save it as test, save. And then what will happen is once you have that saved, you can open it as a LightBurn file, and it will open it exactly as you had it before. Your job will be in the same spot on the machine. Your cut lines and your fill lines will be set properly. Your settings will be the same, and you will be able to just send that job right over to your laser just as you were the last time that you cut it. The other thing that you can do is you can go up into File, and you can go to Export, and you can export the file as an SVG if you don't want to save it as a LightBurn file. Entirely up to you. But that is the general overview of LightBurn for those of you who don't use it for designing, or those of you who are currently using a Glowforge and want to see the difference between the Glowforge user interface and how to use the LightBurn user interface. I hope that was helpful, and that concludes this overview. As always, feel free to join us in the Glowcreate group on Facebook for additional tips and tricks on how to use Procreate, Adobe Illustrator, and LightBurn beyond the screen to turn your digital artwork into physical products. If you enjoyed this video and would like to be notified of future tutorials, please hit the like button and subscribe below. Until next time, this is Heather Lynn of Lobo Design signing off. I'll holla at you later.